Hello and welcome to everybody. I'm pleased and happy that we can have our annual conference after a 1 year break or 2 years break, so to speak. And the circumstances are still a little complicated, but I think we will make the best out of it. And there are pros and cons with an online conference. Of course, it would have been nicer to see you face to face and to have also the social events. And I would have liked to offer you some good Viennese food, but yeah, this is not possible this year. But still, I think it's important that we catch up and we exchange our point of views. There's a lot going on European level. We have also to decide on certain AIPCE procedure and stuff. And besides that, today we have, in my opinion, many interesting topics, and I'm very happy that many of you participate in the panels, but I'm also happy that if you will raise questions, and of course you can also comment the sessions in the chat room. You can also raise questions if you prefer in the chat room, and after the presentations or after the panels we can also get back to the questions you raised in the chat. But anyway, you are also able to raise questions in person, so to speak, after the panel. So you can raise the question also directly to the speakers. Yeah, I just want to mention once again that the meeting will be recorded. All panels and discussions of today, they will be published online on our website, presscouncils.eu, and we will also use it for our YouTube channel, so people can also watch it afterwards. Yeah, and I'm also very thankful to Edwin and Luis. They were a great support. Without them, I couldn't have, or we couldn't have organized the event, and both of them, they were very active and supportive. So big thanks to my two colleagues. Before we get into the first topic, I just want to know if anybody has any comments on our agenda, or is there anything unclear? Any questions from anybody? Okay, so everybody's fine, that's good. Then I would suggest that we just jump into the first topic, which is quite an important one, but also a heavy one. I will just start with my presentation. So I have to wait a second to share my screen with you. Here we go. One second. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the terror attacks last year in Vienna. It was quite a substantial event also for us. All of Austria was shocked. I mean, there was one attacker, one terrorist who killed 4 people and injured more than 20, injured many of them severely. And one person was also killed just in our building. There is one restaurant, one Chinese restaurant, and the restaurant owner, he just wanted to close the shop and to protect his customers. And at that very moment, the terrorist passed by and shot him, and he shot, I think it was 8 or 9 shots towards him, and he was dead right away. So somehow we are also affected in a second way, because we share this office at this building, and the terrorist was just passing by, running down the road which we are facing with our office. So that was also kind of a strange feeling. Fortunately, nobody of us was present when the attack took place. That was at about a little bit after 8 o'clock in the evening on November 2nd. And I was the last person who went away from the office, and I lost just 40 minutes before or something like that. And I was very happy that I was not on the street, of course, but I was also happy that I was not in the office, because the police didn't allow people to leave the buildings and the restaurants till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because it was not sure if there was a second attacker, a second terrorist. So many things were unclear, and I was happy that I was safe and I was home. And I mean, it was a very busy evening for us because there were a lot of postings on social media, and we directly advised people how to make a complaint. Many people raised the question how they can make a complaint to us, and we did also make some general statements on media ethics and the protection of the victims of the attack. So that was also interesting, because normally we don't do that. We are just waiting for the complaints, and then our deciding bodies, our senates, they will decide on it, and they will decide if they want to pick it up, and then they will give their opinion within a decision. But in this case, we thought it is absolutely necessary that we raise our voice and give some general information to the public. And so we just said that you should follow the police instructions, and we also said that media should respect the privacy and the personality sphere of the victims. And these postings were widely spread. I mean, on Twitter, this post had more than 130,000 impressions, which is really a lot, because normally we don't have so many impressions for all of a month. So you could see that there was really a demand of some statements and information from respectful institutions. And actually we were somehow happy that our information or our statement was spread that widely. Also the police department of Vienna retweeted our statement. So somehow this was a good sign that we were accepted as an institution, and we could see that there was really a demand also regarding questions of media ethics. And actually there was quite a big and a substantial discussion right after the attacks on media ethics. And this was first of all because two media outlets, Kronenzeitung and Österreich or OE24, two big tabloids, they released videos of shootings. In one video you could see the shooting of a woman just around the corner, so very close by, also from our office, and she died on the spot. And this video came from the Israeli community. They have their community center in that street, and they have some video surveillance, and so that's why they could record this shooting. And the second video was about the police officer who was shot by the terrorist on Schwedenplatz, and he didn't die, but he was severely injured, and you could just see how he collapsed on the street after the shooting. And most of the complaints were related to those two videos. So we got altogether on the attacks nearly 1,500 complaints, which is also a negative record, of course. We have never had that many complaints on one single event. And most of those complaints, they were related to the videos, but some other complaints were about pictures in the newspapers. Most of the complaints, they were connected to pictures and videos. So it was mostly a visual problem, so to speak. And of course, it was quite a challenge for us to handle all those complaints. We are a small team, as you know, and yeah, we had to think about how to inform the people and the public on our proceedings. There was a lot of discussions on the videos, and there was also a kind of a boycott against these two media outlets, because the general public thought it was too much to release and to publish those videos. And so some big companies, the supermarket chains and other big Austrian companies, they canceled their advertising for 2 weeks at those media outlets. And so there was a lot of pressure on the media outlets, also just at the very beginning, without having our decisions. And that was very interesting, because the discussion was really big on media ethics, and I think that was also very, very good. Besides of the tragedy of this event, and we were very precise on our proceedings. We had some formalistic problem or some procedural problem with one outlet, because they showed the video on their TV channel, which is an online TV channel, and for TV channels normally we would not be responsible, but it was not so clear, because they have a live stream on their online site, ö24.at, and for this online site we are responsible. And so we had to decide if this was good enough to have the live stream on that website. But at the same time, it was even more complicated, because the live stream was not working due to the high traffic on that website. So in fact, they didn't really show that video on ö24.at, but they wanted to show it. And so we had to think about how to deal with that problem. But in the end, our Senate 2, who was responsible for the terror attack and the complaints concerning it, said that it was good enough that they wanted to publish it. So the editorial process was done, and that's good enough that we could connect the video to the website OA24 or OA24.at. But the media outlet was not happy on that decision, but I will tell you something on that later on. So we said both of the media outlets can be held liable or were responsible for releasing the video. Krone.at, the second media outlet, didn't show all of the video. They just showed the first shooting of the woman with a rifle. She was not dead after the first shooting, but the terrorists came back for a second shot. You can see it on that picture, and he used a pistol and shot her dead with a second shot. Or there was a second action, so the Kronenzeitung or Krone.at, they said that they selected the material and they didn't show the whole attack, just the first part. And they did also say, or both media outlets said, that you couldn't really recognize the person. And we said it's bad enough to show the first part, the first shot. That is also quite a brutal situation, and we did also say that for certain people of the family and of people who know that woman, they still know that it is this specific person. So we didn't pick up that argument either from the media outlets. It was also very interesting that the outlets gave a very long statement through their lawyers. I think that's because there was so much discussion and so much public pressure on them, so they wanted to try to give us or to provide us with every single argument for the publication. They also said that they didn't show it for a long time on Krone.at. It was taken off after some hours, and on the TV channel it was shown a couple of times, but then they stopped because there was also so much so many complaints to the media outlet on that very evening, so that they could see that the public was not happy to have that video. Besides that, they also said that it is necessary to show the video so that the people could see how brutal the attack was, and our Senate was not of that opinion either. They said that you could have shown the brutality also without infringing the personality sphere of the victims. Another argument by the media was that that they had to show the terrorists to warn the people in the inner city of Vienna. We didn't accept that argument either, because they could have shown the terrorists his face or his clothes and everything, also without showing the shooting. So that was also not an argument which we picked up. And another argument by the media was that the video has been spread or was spread on social media, so it was shared. I don't know how many times, but it got viral because somehow I think the first ones who published the video was an Israeli TV station. They got the video from the Israeli community of Vienna, and they showed it on Israeli TV. And somehow it was also spread, of course, through social media. And the media outlets, they said, so it was okay that they showed it also because it was spread anyway. And they also said that it was important to show it because if you would see it only on social media, people maybe would be doubtful if it's real or if it's a fake video. And we didn't accept those arguments either, because we said that it doesn't matter if something is spread online, it's not automatically okay that the media will pick it up. It is also not important if other media outlets abroad will show the video, because the editorial departments of the Austrian media, they have to make a decision on themselves. And we didn't accept the argument that it was necessary to show it because otherwise people would have said it's maybe a fake video, either because the media outlets could also have just said that there is this video, they could have described it verbally, and they could have said that it's true. So there is no necessity to show those pictures. And so at the end, we made quite a decision which was relatively long because of the gravity of the case and of the many complaints and the demand of the public to have our opinion. So at the end we said that was an infringement of privacy and also an infringement of the personality sphere of the victims. And we also said that it was a severe infringement, and it was not good enough that they didn't show it for a long time, because sometimes we would say if the media reacts quickly and they take some content off, then we would say that they are excused somehow. But in this case, this was not an option for us, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah. Besides the video, I don't have a picture of the shooting of the police officer, but this video of the police officer was done by some innocent bystander, so to speak. But also with this video, even if the police officer didn't die and he was in charge of his public office, so to speak, we still said it was an infringement of his privacy and of his personality sphere. And then besides that, there were some complaints on specific pictures. This is a picture of the shooting of a German student that's here around the corner at a restaurant where a German student was working part-time, and she was shot in front of the restaurant. And with this picture, it was a little bit tricky because you could see the blood on the street and some people helping her, but you couldn't see the victim. And in this case, we said, yeah, it's not an infringement. It's maybe not the best idea to use that pictures, but we didn't say that it is an infringement of our code of ethics because you couldn't see the person. And I mean, we had so many different complaints and so many different pictures and video materials. So it was quite difficult to differentiate. And actually, our Senate too was also working hard on it. It was the longest session ever. They had to take care of those complaints for more than 6 hours. So it was also quite some effort for our journalists who are members of our Senates. And in this case, they said it's still okay. Then I'll show you another picture of a victim who was injured. And here the Senate said it's not okay because you could see the victim and you could see the clothes. So for some people, maybe it was possible to recognize the victim. And I think it's very interesting because we had really to decide on the specific pictures, and some of them were very close. I think this picture is not that far away from the picture I showed you just before, where you could see the blood on the street, but you didn't see the victim. But somehow we had to make a distinction, and we had to make a line between the various pictures. Then there was another problem which some people raised. They were not happy that the media showed images of the terrorist. And in this case, our Senate said that it was okay to show those pictures because somehow through that picture, people were also warned. People who were downtown Vienna could see those pictures maybe online, and they could see how the terrorist looks like. And besides that, the terrorists wanted also that the pictures were spread. But of course, we did also think about that, about the problem that for the terrorists, it's a goal to be in the media. So there is also an argument against showing those pictures, but we didn't say that it's an infringement of our code of ethics. Then there was another picture of the terrorist, which was used by some tabloids. That was a picture which the terrorist released online on Facebook before of or on the day of the attacks in the afternoon, and he tried to show off a bit and to use all the weapons to show to the public all the weapons he used for the attacks. So in this case, we didn't either say that it's an infringement of our code of ethics, but we said that the people should, or the media should be aware that possibly they are pushing the agenda of the terrorists by using such material. And at least we wrote a letter to the media to think about that. So we didn't open an official proceeding, but we wrote an open letter to the media outlets, and the letter then was also put on our website, and there was some discussion on social media about that specific problem. And then there was another case related to the picture of the terrorist. One newspaper, Österreich again, showed the terrorist, the dead body of the terrorist, but they pixeled it, and this was okay. It is strange when the media use pictures and then they pixel it that much that you cannot really see anything. Maybe it's because they want to tell their readers that they are in the possession of that picture. but the readers don't see anything. So, I mean, there is no infringement of our code of ethics, but in a part of this edition of the newspaper, the picture of the dead body was not pixeled. And in this case, we said that was an infringement into the human dignity of the terrorists. So we said that it was an infringement of our code of ethics, and it was an infringement of his personality sphere. We had a case on Anders Breivik some years ago, where a journalist said that he is an animal, and he used kind of a bad word for him. And also in this case, we said it's an infringement of his human dignity. Even a person who is a criminal or a mass murderer has a certain human dignity, and media outlets or the media should respect that. So that was also kind of an interesting discussion, because yeah, part of the public thinks that there is no personality sphere for such criminals, but of course we try to be very precise and very neutral, and that's why the Senate said that this was also an infringement of our code of ethics. And I think the Senate was also quite strict, because there were some pictures of people fleeing from the spot, like the one you can see here, and you could see the faces of those people running away. And also in this case, the Senate said it was an infringement of our code of ethics, because this is also a very stressful and specific and special situation for those people. They are fearing their own death, and under that circumstances you should not show the picture, the faces at least. So that was quite a strict approach. We had another picture of some young men who were arrested or searched by some special force of the police, and you could just see them from behind, so you didn't see their faces, and you could just see how the police searched their bodies, and they didn't have any clothes on their upper body. So that was also, of course, not a very, and they were not terrorists, but the police was not sure, so they searched them. So for them, that was also a very a difficult situation, of course, but we didn't say that it was an infringement of our code of ethics, because you couldn't see the faces, and the picture taken by some innocent bystander again was also not very clear, and it was rather taken from far away. So we said this is fine also. And yeah, besides that, I want to mention another case connected to the attack. I want to mention again this German student who was a part-time waiter at that restaurant. The family, or the mother and the sister of the victim, they wrote a letter and put the picture of the victim to it, and they put it on the spot where she was shot. A lot of people went to the spot where the attacks took place, and they put some candles there, and there was a lot of mourning, and yeah, all of Austria, all of Vienna was really shocked, and there was national mourning for 3 days, and the family laid down this letter and this picture, and one journalist or one photographer from the Kronenzeitung, he took a picture of that letter and of the picture of the victim, and this picture was published in the newspapers, a couple of days after the attack. And there was a complaint that this was also an infringement of the privacy of the family and of the victim. And we picked up that case and we opened the proceeding. And it was also interesting because the family of the victim, they said, they made a press release through the University of Applied Art. There she was studying, the victim was studying there. And in this press release, they asked the media not to release the name of the victim and not to publish any picture, any photograph of the victim. And we said that, and besides that, they sent also emails to the media outlets to restrain from publishing any additional information on the victim. And the Kronenzeitung, they said that they didn't see that, and if they would have known that the family is not in favor of publishing such information, they wouldn't have done it. But at the same time, they also said that this letter and this picture was put on a public spot, on a public sphere, and the family should have been aware that if they lay down this letter with the picture, that the journalists would also find it and pick it up and publish it in the newspaper. And we said that there was an infringement of our code of ethics. There was an infringement of the personality sphere of the family and of the victim, because just because a picture is laid down on a morning spot, that doesn't mean that the media can just use it. And they should have asked the family, and they should have also seen the press release and the emails by the family. So due to this, it was relatively clear that we didn't accept it. Yeah, and it was also somehow interesting because you know, when you have a terror attack in your own city or in your own country, then I think it's somehow also different than having one in Paris or in London or somewhere else. It's bad enough if it happens there, but you are somehow affected directly, and it is a very, very special situation. And also for us, it was quite particular and difficult because our office is so close to the attacks, and we still had to do our work on the next day. I mean, there was still it was still not open for everybody. All this area, the police was controlling, and they let us in because we said that we have our office there, but we just could go there with police officers. They just brought us till the entrance of our office, and the atmosphere was very, very sad and difficult. And at the same time, of course, it was necessary that we were present and that we did our job. Yeah, and we did our job, I think, in a neutral and in a very good way. I mean, we informed the public every now and then about the proceedings and about the progress. We made an extraordinary meeting of our senates to be quicker, but at the same time it took us it took some time because we needed to clarify this procedural question on the TV station and the connection to the online site. But in the end, I think we did some good and interesting work, and I hope that that we could also change the approach of Austrian media a little bit, because it was an extraordinary and very awful event, of course, but the tabloids could also see that they exaggerated by publishing those two videos. Okay, I'm open for any questions and for any discussion. Any comments, any experiences with terror attacks in your country, maybe?
I have one question, if I can.
Yeah, go on, Peter.
Yeah. So, do I understand well, in the video where the woman was shot dead behind the corner of your street, was it pixeled? Was she pixeled or blurred or not?
Yeah, she was. That was also not completely for sure. They said that they pixeled her, yeah, but it was not sure for the TV channel, because we didn't have the recording of the video of the TV channel. We had the video through social media. We could pick that up somehow. It was also sent to us. The Kronenzeitung said that she was pixeled, and the TV channel or OE24, they also said that it was pixeled, and we accepted that. So we took it from that point. We are not completely sure if it was really pixeled on TV, but it didn't really matter, because we said that also the pixeled version was an infringement of our code of ethics.
So, and then I have a question about this. Why was this an infringement of the code of ethics of her personality?
Yeah, because we said that the family members and people close to this person, they do know that it is this specific person and it is this victim. I know that from a law perspective, it's stricter. People, if you are doing a lawsuit on the right to image, there's always the first question: is the person recognizable? Yeah, can you see the person? And we are not that strict. We say even if somebody is pixeled through the clothes, maybe also just through the fact that the people know that the relative was killed on that spot, they know that it is this specific person, and it is a lot of burden for them to see that video. Maybe they wouldn't have seen it if it would not have been shown on the media. Yeah.
Can I just ask one more question about this?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm wondering, where is the distinction between, for instance, the planes flying into the Twin Towers? There also the relatives know my relatives are inside the building, or distinction between pictures of war in Syria, or I don't know where, or the pictures of the bombings in, we discussed the pictures of the bombings in Brussels airport some years ago with, you remember the aerostess in her yellow jacket, and then everybody said these pictures it was allowed to show them. So my question is, where is the distinction between other things and this? And then I have two other questions.
It is difficult. Also, it's a case-to-case decision, and I think our senates were relatively strict. But I think there are arguments for our point of view, or for the point of view of our senate. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, with the terror attacks on 9/11 with the plane, I mean, you didn't see the people in the plane. Yeah, then you could see people jumping from the Twin Towers, but that was relatively from far away. So I think there were also discussions in the media, who was this person, and some people wanted to find out, but it was not for sure if they could. Somebody had I think had an orange T-shirt, and then they said, okay, there was a cook in these restaurants wearing always this orange T-shirt. So, you know, it's tricky, of course, but in this case, we said that it's connected to a specific person, and it was not necessary to show the shooting, which is also a very brutal scene, of course. The shooting is something else than showing a victim, a wounded victim, lying on the floor. Like with Brussels airport, you had people which were injured, and they gave also interviews. We had also discussion on that with within our council, and there the people were not really sure what to do. And so in this case with Brussels airport, we made a general statement, and we gave the arguments for the publication and against the publication, you know. So it's a very tricky situation. And of course, I already said that when an attack took place very, very close to yourself, then somehow maybe the parameters are a little bit or slightly different than having an attack in Lebanon, or having an attack in Afghanistan, or having an attack
but
in some other
and then
country.
really my last question, because then in courses I give for students and lectures and so on, I always says, it's dangerous to say then first our people first, and we pay more attention to them. But two other questions, because you're talking about these victims, for instance, at Brussels airport, but you showed also the picture of the boy lying on the ground with blood on his leg. He was not recognizable. And also the two women running away. And the Senate said they should have made
pictures of the faces, at least.
But I remember a lot of pictures of the attacks on Twin Towers with people running away. So my question is, where is the difference?
Yeah,
That's
maybe there is no difference, or maybe, I don't know, 9/11 was even a more historic event, because it was a huge attack, and it was one of the first attacks in the West through Islamists, you know. I don't know, you can argue. I think it's good that the thing is that you should start a discussion with also with our decisions also, and it's not the only possibility to solve that problem. And you could of course also see it differently regarding those people just running away. You could see, okay, there was the attacks and they're a little bit shocked, but still they didn't have any injury, so it's okay to show them. Yeah. But somehow, I don't know, our Senate was relatively strict on those attacks. And maybe because there was also so much public discussion in Austria on media ethics, and the videos, I mean, everybody said that the videos were not, it was not okay to release those videos. Yeah? But of course, that should not be decisive for our decision. We should be neutral, and we should find the right arguments. But there is always some room for discretion, I think. And in this case, probably our Senate was relatively strict. Yeah.
Okay, the next question would be from Manfred Protze.
Yeah, hello. Together to the recent point, and our colleague from Brussels, we in the German Press Council always make a clear difference between photos and videos of a scenery, and on the other hand, a scenery, and on the other hand, the selection of individuals in the reporting. That makes a big difference, and also for the case of the temporary mourning point at the terrorist attack point. We accept photos of the monument, but we don't accept the photos magnified out of the monument. That means portraits of persons or other selected information. My questions or my remark to one of the first cases, I think it's difficult, and we would think twice or thrice to open a procedure against the medium which has just the intention to publish. We are normally strictly bound to the fact, to the result, to the publisher's result. This is, in my eyes, difficult.
Yeah.
We are not a kind of supervision controlling the intentions and the thinking of media and journalists. This is indeed a different position, I think. And the last remark, we are fully in line saying that there is that dignity of man is not
is untouchable, so to speak. Yeah,
it's not a privilege of the goods.
Yeah.
In our philosophy, everybody which is born has this dignity and will not lose it. So this is sometimes very difficult to accept for some people, but we are very clear in that, including the question whether Osama bin Laden loses his dignity while being a terrorist. And the last remark is just a moment.
If you want, I can.
Yes, that is, we are fully in line with the aspect of what we can call the terrorism marketing. We always take into account that, not in general, but in each procedure, we have to check in a balancing of aspects whether the publication has this kind of marketing effect. And for example, those videos of the performing of a crime are normally in this range of marketing for the perpetrator. So this is I think good. And last remark, your cases show very impressively, in my eyes, one of the recent and heavy problems of the self-regulated press and media. We have a kind of competitor in the social media, disregarding any ethic rule. And we have self-regulated media, and they are, on one hand, very, I think, in a very good position ethically, but on the other hand, they are permanently under pressure to follow these competitors because the public uses both media, and what they do not find in our media, they find it in the social media. The recent case, and this is, I'm very deeply impressed because it's very, very fresh, is the case of young men shot violently down, deadly shot, because he asked for wearing a corona mask. And he was shot by one of these engaged fighters against mask and vaccination. And this was sad enough, but in my eyes, the most deprimating and the worst part of this story is that in social media, there was open space to love the perpetrator and to support his attack, his deadly attack.
Yeah, thank you, Manfred, for your comments. Maybe one thing on the intention of publishing, or I think you meant also that the thoughts are free, that we cannot interfere in the thoughts of the journalists or the editorial departments. That's true, but in this case it was like that they decided on purpose, or they decided that they want to show the TV channel, and there was only a technical problem. And so we thought, is this good enough that we cannot make them responsible because of this technical problem, or should we take them into the decision because they on purpose or willingly decided to take the live TV show on their website, and we just thought it's good enough, and there was only a technical problem, but they should be liable, or they should be responsible for anything which is shown on that TV channel, because they constantly put it on their website, and they wanted also to have traffic to the TV channel. That's why they do it, and we thought it would be a bad idea to leave them aside. But this shows also that it's problematic, in my opinion, that we are only responsible for newspapers and their online sites, and not for TV channels. I think it's better to have a wide-reaching responsibility as a press or media council, because nowadays the borders are not that strict between the different media channels, and I think that is also the problem, that we are a little bit old-fashioned, and we connect our responsible through the newspapers and magazines and their online sites, and sometimes the online site is more important than the newspaper itself, and we still say our first responsibility is due to the newspapers. So I think we should change that also somehow. Yeah, but it was a tricky question, and there was quite some discussion, and we had also a meeting of the heads of our 3 senates to solve that problem. But finally, they agreed on that solution. And as I said, the media outlet Österreich, oe24.at, they were not happy with that decision, and they said that they will sue us. Yeah, they didn't do it yet, but they announced it right after the release of our decision. They announced it, and they are members of our council, which is also interesting. But they said that they will sue us. They didn't do it. Probably they didn't do it because the editor-in-chief of this media outlet has some kind of a scandal, faces some kind of a scandal towards Me Too. Yeah, there's a big discussion on him. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's tactics at the moment that he is not suing us, because, yeah, there would be another discussion on him. Yeah, but the media outlet was not very happy with that decision, and then they made also a lot of public statements that we were wrong and that it's not fair and that it was not okay. But I mean, we did 1-page reasoning for this specific problem within our decision. So we really thought properly on it. I don't say that it's the only solution, but I think also on this we have some discretion, and we had some arguments for our position. Okay, Eline, I think, was next, and then Ed and Sonja.
Yes, thank you, Alex. I think it's a very interesting discussion, and thank you for your presentation. I want to have some comments about this year. It's been 10 years since the biggest terrorist attack in Norway, like you mentioned earlier, when Anders Behring Breivik first bombed the building of the Prime Minister's office and then shot and killed 69 young people. Who were very young, in fact, on an island, on an annual gathering for young social democrats. And it has been a big discussion this year, and it has been mostly raised by those who survived the terrorist attack on this island. And there's been two main topics. The first is, how did the press cover the attack, and how did they reach out to the young people when they came on land from this island, injured, cold, afraid, in shock, and most of the survivors has said that they were satisfied with the coverage and how the journalists reached out to them. But there also has been a few apologies this year from media outlets where they have regretted to go too close up to those who were just coming out of this horrific happening. And the second discussion is about why the media has not published more pictures from the attack. And this has also been raised by the survivors. Some of them says clearly that they want more. And on the other side, we have a lot of parents and families who lost their loved ones who were killed, and they still strongly ask the media not to publish more videos and pictures. And this is a dilemma for for all the media. And I think it's a problem maybe that coming generations don't have a clear picture of how terrible these attacks are, and maybe it will even get harder to build proper defense from further attacks. And on the other hand, I think the media has to consider how those who experience the worst, how they think about it. And I think in Norway, this summer's debate has resulted in one thing. It's a better guidance for journalists and editors on how to cover terrorist attacks, and it's made by the Journalist Union and the Editors Association. And this is good, I think, how to approach those who have been subjected to terrorism. And the other question is unanswered. It's about the pictures and videos. And there has still not been any Norwegian media outlet who has published more than before. And it's been out of consideration for the families who lost their closed ones. But I'm not sure about the answer. I think it's a huge dilemma. But concrete question to you: Has these cases in Vienna led you to consider changes of your ethical code, or do you need more guidance? I ask you, we don't have any specific rules about the coverage of terrorism, and from time to time people ask us, shouldn't we have that? And it was also a discussion after the attack in Christchurch in New Zealand, where a lot of different states was critical about media coverage, like Manfred was mentioned about the terrorist marketing kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you, Eline, for your statement and your interference. Yeah, there is a dilemma, of course, and some victims or some families of the victims, they want to have more coverage and also expressive coverage. Others don't want it. I mean, maybe you can solve it a bit that you say the specific victim involved can, of course, agree that pictures of her or him can be released, or the family of one victim, so you could differentiate. And other families and other victims, they don't want to be disturbed and they don't want to be shown in the media. So you can always ask the families or the victim, the injured victim, if they agree to give an interview, to release pictures and so on. So that would be maybe one thing you could do as a journalist. And concerning your second question on the guidance, we had some discussion, and we were also discussing. I mean, I think with our code of ethics, it's possible to solve those cases because we have a privacy provision, and we have a quite general provision on human dignity and the protection of the personality sphere of people in general. But we have also one specific provision concerning victims of criminal acts. So I think we can do that, and it's anyway a quite case-to-case decision. But we had some discussion on the aspect that the terrorists want to promote themselves, and they want to have those pictures with the weapons and so on in the media. But at the same time, it's a little bit complicated to say that it's an infringement of the code of ethics. I think that it's an infringement of the code of ethics showing a picture of the terrorist with his weapons, because first of all, he agrees to it implicitly that those pictures should be shown. And of course, there's also some public interest towards him, yeah. But we decided for now that we will raise that problem within by writing letters to the media outlets without a specific or official procedure. So that's kind of a first step, but you could argue if you should have that in the code of ethics. But at the same time, then people say or journalists say it's important to describe the terrorist and to show his background. And it depends also how you in which context you publish those pictures. If you just publish them and you showed this was released and you are not very critical on it, it's different than saying that the terrorist wants to show off and wants to satisfy the ISIS people and wants to be shown as a hero and so on. I mean, it depends also on the context a little bit, but it's a very tricky problem. I think pictures of the terrorists with their weapons and trying to spread anger and trying to satisfy their fans, so to speak, at the same time. Yeah.
I have to interrupt you. We already have 2 questions that came before that were posted in the chat. One is from Olga Kraftshofer. She's referring to when you said that we wrote a letter, and she wants to know if it was a public post on social media or whether the letter was sent or addressed. And the second question is from Florian Sauerwein. He wants to know if we have certain recommendations for publishers for real-time reporting about terror attacks. Mm-hmm. And maybe just one request. If you post a question in the chat, please raise your hand via the reactions button as well, so that we can easier find it.
Yeah, I think the second question is already answered, because I said we didn't do any specific rules on terrorist attacks. And the other question on the letter, I can easily answer. It's an open letter, so we sent it to the media outlets, but at the same time we put it on our website and we post it also on social media. And sometimes those letters, they have more attention than a decision by us. Yeah, it depends. It can happen. At the same time, you could say, okay, it's a bit unfair because the media cannot officially give a statement within a proceeding. But I think we have developed that on purpose, that for certain cases we can tell the media outlets something without starting a procedure. So I think it's good that we have we have developed that instrument as well. Yeah. Okay, Ed is next.
Okay, thanks, Alex. That was a really interesting talk. And obviously in London, unfortunately, over the years, we've had sort of multiple experience of terror attacks. And I circulated some information in the chat room about some forthcoming research that's going to be published about the experience of, or the media experiences of victims of terror. And I've obviously had a privilege to see a sort of pre-draft sort of copy of that. And the issues coming out of that are not so much about published material, but about the news gathering practices of journalists. So particularly examples of where families of victims are doorstepped and they're finding through journalists that their loved ones have died, where journalists have used subterfuge to gain access to the victims or survivors who are injured in hospital, and all sorts of sort of unethical practices. So I just wondered, in the Vienna experience, whether you had any complaints from the public about the news gathering practices of journalists rather than just the published material.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the complaints, really most of them, they were related to those videos because there was so much public discussion on it, and all of Austria was shocked that you could see those videos. Yeah, so I think that was the core of the whole thing, and that's why it became so big. And many people on social media said also we should write a complaint, and they told others to send us an email and to make a complaint. So there was some kind of snowball effect also, I would say. But still, at the same time, it was good that so many people came to us and made a complaint, and somehow, yeah, as I said, it strengthened also our position because people really trusted our tweets on the evening of the attack. So somehow that was a good sign, I think. And also we somehow cooperated with the police department of Vienna online, and that was really a good thing, I think. And especially when many things are unclear, it's important that you have sources which you can trust. And concerning media ethics, there was a need for a statement and a need for trustful information, so to speak. And actually we were just being online all till 2 o'clock in the morning. I was online and answering questions and postings on Twitter and on Facebook and so on. So I was really busy, which was somehow also good, because I personally was shocked when Louis called me. He knew that I was still at the office, so I was the last person in the office, and he called me and said, "Alex, where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm home now." And he said, "Oh, that's very good, because there was some shooting." And so I was also somehow shocked, and then I was checking the news online, and everything was developing. And I mean, I live just 20 minutes walk away from the office, so you know, I was somehow affected. And also for me personally, it was quite a kind of a release that I could do my official job and do some proper work on it, so to speak. Okay, Mary, I think you wanted to tell us something.
Yes, I would just like to ask whether any of you have a similar experience after the Christchurch mosque attacks. You know, we're a self-regulatory organisation like you. We don't have any basis in statute. And after the mosque attacks, the chief censor, who has the authority of statute, called in quite some of particularly the live streaming and some of the other coverage, and issued a ruling eventually that it was objectionable, which meant that nobody was allowed to hold it anymore. In fact, you were in breach of the law if you were holding that coverage after it had been ruled objectionable. And then the Department of Internal Affairs came in and said that they were doing an investigation of media coverage of the mosque attacks. And so that kind of meant that the 25 complaints that we had received, we felt became subsumed under their legal authorities. Do you have any experience with that? And do you go ahead and consider the complaints anyway, which we didn't? Or, you know, would you then like submit BOW to the legal authority that the government departments carry?
Actually, we are normally of the opinion that we are doing our job and the authorities and the courts, they're doing their job. So we don't really interfere, or we don't send any complaints to the authorities. We don't like that approach or that idea. And so sometimes if there's a lawsuit, we say that we will have a break with our proceeding because we don't want to interfere the lawsuit. But normally it's our discretion what to do with the complaints, and we don't cooperate with the authorities.
Thank you, Alex.
The next question was posted in the chat again. It's from Tatjana Pirch from Slovenia. She wants to know what you think about publishing photos and names of terrorists in the first minutes and hours after an attack, because the people are still suspect at this point. And on the one hand, this could cause a lot of troubles for people who are published by mistake. And on the other hand, it's just that you have to avoid to glorify terrorists.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. It depends if the suspect is if the police says those are the suspects. I mean, it depends on the specific case. If it seems that those are the terrorists, and afterwards you find out maybe one of those was not part of it, but the police was of this opinion, and there was a lot of evidence at that specific moment that this guy was involved. I think the standards for checking properly the information is a little bit different than in a normal situation. It's a very unsure and specific circumstances. We had the case. I didn't tell you about that. We had also cases or complaints on the fact that that some media outlets said that there is a hostage in a restaurant close by to the inner city, and the police is asking people not to show up at that area. And in the end, we found out that it was not the case. Yeah, but the police was also of this opinion. So the information came from the police. And we said, okay, it was the information was not true, but they somehow checked it and they got the information from the police. And it was also important to warn the people around that area to avoid that area, because chances were there that there was a hostage and that there were some more terrorists. Many news outlets, they wrote that it was not a single terrorist, but it was a group of terrorists performing the attacks. And this information came also from the police. So many things are unsure, and it's also difficult to clarify completely those informations at that point. So I think sometimes if you have good arguments, the standards of investigating are lower than under normal circumstances. Yeah, so it's a tricky situation, because if the public is in danger, it's important that you say, okay, there could be a hostage, don't go there. It's more than one. Attackers, don't go out, stay in your houses, stay at the restaurants. I mean, people had to stay at the restaurants in the inner city till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Only afterwards the police took the people out from the restaurants one by one, and it was many things were unclear. And on the next day, we didn't have school in Vienna because they said it's better to avoid it, because there was the possibility that there were other terrorists still out. Yeah, so it's complicated for the journalists, and there's a lot of pressure because the public wants to get information. At the same time, many things are unclear. But I think sometimes it's okay to release information which is not completely checked, because people are in danger and the situation is very specific.
Okay, Peter Knappen is next.
Yeah, I want to clarify my questions I asked in the beginning of this session. I think we also, and I agree, we also wouldn't accept the showing of the videos on internet or television, even if they're unrecognizable. Photos, probably, I don't know, but we wouldn't accept the showing of the videos, just as we wouldn't accept the showing of the videos of the beheadings by ISIS some years ago. But for me, and that's what I wanted to say, the most important argument not to do so is one of human dignity in general, and not of proximity, not the reason that those people, those victims, could be recognized by their relatives, because then there is the risk that you would make a distinction between people living in Austria and cruelties in, let me say, Uganda at the time when Joseph Kony and his army of, I don't remember, the cruelties of Joseph Kony or ISIS. So for me, indeed, we wouldn't accept showing these videos, but not because of the reason of the chance to be recognized or proximity, but because of the reason of human dignity in general. And that's the other things I talked about, but that's for me the most important reason, or the most important thing in these discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. That's an interesting point of view. And actually, we did also say that it is all about human dignity. And just as a second argument, we said it's also very bad for the family and so on. And actually, we had also cases, for example, a video showing a police officer in the US who was shot. Yeah. We did also say that it's a problem for the relatives, even though probably those relatives won't watch Austrian news sites, yeah, or the video on the Austrian news site, but theoretically they could, because it's a global network, of course. So we had that argument also with other cases, and we used it also for situations abroad. And we also said that there is no high chance that they will watch it, but still they could theoretically. Yeah, so you're completely right. Human dignity is the core of it, I would say. But then you could argue and have that second argument, or you leave it out. You could also say maybe it's better just to concentrate on human dignity and it's good enough. But somehow we wanted to give also some release probably to the families and say that for them it's also very, very bad to see that on the news sites. Yeah. Okay, I think Peter and then Olga. Peter Fini.
Thank you, Alex. Manfred raised the distinction between the ethical standards of the media and the lack of ethical standards often found on social media. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important distinction to bear in mind. One of the main arguments for the media has to be that it has ethical standards, that it gives thought and care to what it publishes. And just reading our own code of ethics here about privacy, there is the two qualifications. One is an additional concern has to be grieving families. And the other is, in anything that is published, you must take account of what is in the public interest. And I think all press councils, all media councils must have to the forefront this thought of what is in the public interest. Is it in the public interest to publish something or not to publish something? And I know editors will argue that it is in the public interest to show the consequences of terrorist attacks, and will justify perhaps showing images of dead people and images of bloody bodies, etc., and say it's in the public interest to show that, that this is the consequence of terrorism. But our jobs as press councils, I think, is to consider, is it actually in the public interest? Can the public be informed without this intrusion into the grief of families and the privacy and dignity of victims, etc.? So there's a balance to be achieved there. And I'm impressed at how the Austrian Press Council spent so much time in giving consideration to this, because it isn't an easy balance. It's quite a difficult one. And obviously some cultures have slightly different attitudes to privacy and to dignity than other cultures. So it's up to each individual press council. But the key for us has to be, I think, the maintenance of ethical standards and the respect for privacy and dignity, and balancing that with the need to inform people.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I fully agree to that. Yeah, and I think also the others are probably of that opinion. Olga, you wanted to add something?
Yes, thanks. And I thank Maida for sharing the file. And I was wondering, we're sort of dealing with recommendations and tips sort of post factum when something happens. Then there's like a complaint on media behavior and press councils issue decisions. I'm wondering sort of before, in advance, so when students are studying journalism, for instance, or young reporters, I don't know, learn from their older colleagues, is there any, I don't know, class on how to deal specifically with victims on terror, or we just refer to some recommendations that are issued after those attacks? Like, are journalists taught sort of to be ethical with covering terrorism?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that topic came up during the last decades quite a bit, and you could also see some development, because at the beginning, journalists didn't know how to deal with material from ISIS and from the beheadings and so on, and quite soon they decided not to show the victims, and not to show the victims in these orange suits, because that was a reference to Guantanamo. And yeah, I think it's unfortunately still very topical, and I think also that students of journalism are dealing with those problems. I mean, I have sometimes also invitations, and I talk about the attacks in schools, or also at universities or so on. So of course, this terror attack was very outstanding for Austria. We didn't have such an attack for a long time. In the 80s, we had some by the Palestinians, but we often say Austria is an island of the blessed, or something like that. We have that saying, and of course, we are not, or it is not. And with this attack, we could see that it can easily happen also here. Yeah, and there's also a lot of discussion going on if the police did a good job. We had problems with the Secret Service, and now it's restructured, and there's a lot of discussion ongoing connected to the attacks and to our system. Manfred,
with one more question from Manfred Protze,
yeah.
And maybe after this we should bring this first session to conclusion, because it's already past 10:30.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. I wanted to say the same thing, but Manfred, you can add something if you want.
Okay.
And then we go to the break.
One point. This is the obligation to respect the dignity of perpetrators by avoiding any prejudice. I think it's a professional standard supported by the Press Council, that there is the journalists and media have to have time and space for the small word suspected or alleged if the perpetratorship is not clear. This is not, in our eyes, a nice to have, this is a must. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the distinguishing elements of the social media and the self-regulated media.
Yeah, that's, of course, you're right. Yeah.
As in some, to add, we have some cases where the perpetratorship is named by the media, and we have no breach of the codex. This is in all cases when the perpetratorship is obvious. Mm. There are some cases by video shooting or by confession of the perpetrator. This is, but we have a clear position in that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, presumption of innocence is also quite important in this context. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you also for the interesting discussion. I think we raised many different topics, and we could really develop this topic together after my presentation, and I appreciate that.